Hello and welcome to this presentation titled Sport Marketing. This is being done for the Media Vantage. It's a consultancy project that I'm undertaking for the Media Vantage. And second, initially the project looks into the history and history of media as a whole, and history of advertising in particular, over the last century. How the rise of print advertising and then followed by the rise in advertising on TV opened a new sort of avenue for brands and companies to be able to target audiences in a mass sort of capacity. And consequently, there was air travel becoming cheap in the middle of last century, when jet travel was became commonplace and travel became cheap and affordable. And there was a lot of people traveling to different parts of the world for leisure, for business, for all of that. So this obviously had an impact because brands who would communicate within their countries, within their own markets, started realizing the worth of speaking to audiences in international markets. So, for example, if the Vietnam Tourism Board noticed that there is a lot of influx of tourists from Germany coming into neighboring Thailand, then they could devise a media strategy which could educate, which could run messaging or advertisements in German media to educate the German travelers on the potential of tourism potential of Vietnam, and get them to start coming to Vietnam. Similarly, Gulf Air might realize that they can actually launch a new route from Berlin to Bangkok, and start running a special deal on it, and start competing with German Airlines or with the Thai Airways. So this opened up a lot of opportunities for a lot of companies who realize the worth of speaking to audiences in different markets. Obviously, tourism boards, governments, airlines were the first to realize this. But there's a whole lot of different kind of advertising that goes on internationally, and we'll come to that. But problems arose when a brand would realize that they want to speak to someone, they want to speak to audiences in a different market, but they don't have any insights, any understanding of that market. They don't know how that market communicates, how brands in that market communicate, how people in that market consume media, what are their consumption habits, what are their decision-making habits, how do they buy travel, what influences do they fall under, and to find this out would be costly and time-consuming. So they would need someone, they would need to speak to someone, they would need a service where they could make those kind of informed decisions very, very quickly within fitting in their own market. At the same time, on the other side of the coin, you had media owners who realized that there's interest developing in their media or in their market from, let's say, the Middle East, but they don't know, they have no way of reaching out to Middle East advertisers or knowing that who is the right person to speak to. Back in the day, some of them would travel to the Middle East or to other regions and find themselves completely lost because every market operates differently. Again, there's different, the media buying is done differently, the media decision making is done differently in every market. So media owners were at a loss how to connect with advertisers and marketers in different countries. This need led to the media representative model. Media owners started appointing agents in certain markets. And we're going to look at that in detail in the research report, how they started appointing agents in different markets and what value were these agents adding to each party. So the Wall Street Journal would have an agent, let's say in Dubai, who would look after the entire Middle East region for them, who would go out and meet different clients and see where they can, who they can sell advertising space to. And that obviously adds revenue to the Wall Street Journal. It's a new revenue stream. At the same time, Dubai Tourism might want to do a campaign in the US and realize that there's an agent in the market who knows the market, who's connected, who's contracted by the Wall Street Journal. Let's speak to them. So it added value to them. At the same time, media buying agencies were some of the biggest are some of the biggest customers for media representatives, because media buying agencies in this region typically are not equipped to handle international media plans. They have a huge network sometimes internationally, but for them to work with their own office in a different market is a huge issue, and it's an operational problem, because every market is equipped to deal with their own clients. When they get a request from a different market, it's not priority, it's not big enough for them. They have to charge a fee, they have to split profits. So media agencies in this region prefer working either directly with the media, which is a huge problem because media could be in different markets. You could be booking a campaign in Canada and Australia simultaneously, which would mean you're up 24 hours. So that's the huge problem. And they realize that if there's an appointed agent in the market, one person you speak to books 14 different titles for you on one booking order. You can negotiate payment terms with them. They work in your time zone. So that's they were media representative basically was solving a problem for each of the stakeholders, from the media owners to the media buyers to the media buying agencies. And this is why the media representative model was born. Now the Media Vantage was set up in 2010. Same model. The media representatives typically work on a 15 to 30% commission model. So TMV was formed in 2010 and had a good few years when people were still booking print media. And the reason is obviously print media is, tends to be expensive. A page in the Wall Street Journal could cost around 100,000 on one day, while you can probably reach the same audience with about 10,000 in digital spend. So all that revenue that used to go into print has started going down over the last few years, and Media Vantage has suffered from that, because even though they represented some of the leading media titles, their profits used to come from, they were overly relying on print advertising. And digital is something that agencies and clients are booking themselves increasingly, because they have options such as social media, they have YouTube, there are a lot of, more than 50% of the spend internationally goes into YouTube and Facebook, Google and Facebook. And the rest could be bought programmatically from their own trading desks. So media agencies who used to have such a big issue reaching out to audiences or media in different countries, all of a sudden they have these platforms that they can buy media on directly. They can buy audiences, they can buy travel audiences, they can buy people who are interested in financial products, for example. They can buy people who have expressed an interest in traveling to Bangkok, for example. All this can be done in-house. There's no need of a media representative anymore. And all this can be done very, very cheaply as well. So this has impacted the Media Vantage's bottom line in a big way over the last few years. Revenue has continually declined over the last 3 to 4 years, and this does not seem like a strategy. Unless there's a change of strategy, there could be a serious issue in future. Okay, so we're going to look at now the background of the opportunity. This research project looks at the deductive theory that sports marketing and sports sponsorship can solve some of that problem that the Media Vantage has. Sport audiences are very and increasingly the numbers of viewership. The viewership of sports has continued to increase over the last few years. The money that it generates has continued to increase. Brands from the Middle East have always had an affinity for sports. You have Emirates, who's always, who's has a long-standing tradition of sponsoring football clubs such as Arsenal, sponsoring their stadium. You have Etihad Airways, who bought a team. Abu Dhabi has obviously bought a team. Manchester City and Etihad Airways has sponsored the stadium, and is the shirt sponsor for Manchester City. And then you have Qatar Airways, who work with Barcelona. For many years they have been the shirt sponsor of Barcelona. TV viewership and ad revenue for sports is on the rise over the last decade. COVID has obviously had an impact. I'm not going to say it's not. It's had an impact, more so on the match day ticket sales. But overall, COVID itself has made audiences very, very hungry for distractions such as sports. And we've seen that recently when sports has started, sporting competitions have started returning to the TV screens. The hunger from the fans has resulted in higher prices being charged for advertising space, such as stadium branding or even TV commercials and shirt sponsorships and so on. My research includes both qualitative and quantitative data. The method I've used for my primary research is mainly interviews, designed to provide qualitative responses, and a questionnaire, which will provide quantitative insights. For secondary data, I will also be looking at statistics, reports, and studies done on the subject. Now, based on my research, which includes interviews with commercial managers at sports clubs, franchises, and media buyers and agencies in the region, I am sharing my findings. Despite the impact of COVID, the sporting industry has adapted very, very quickly. And is evolving constantly. So there is a market gap in the region, and Media Vantage will be the first media representative in the region to include a sport offering such as sponsorships, shirt branding, image rights for players and teams, joint collaborations, and content solutions for advertisers in the region. Now, sporting entities are obviously seeing this region as key, and they have the same problem that media owners did a century ago, last century, where they couldn't connect the dots. They didn't know the markets well enough. A lot of these sporting entities we've spoken to for this research, while they're extremely keen, that they've never ventured outside their own borders. They've always relied on incoming inquiries. They've always relied on working within their own borders, and occasionally an inquiry might come from a Middle Eastern company, from an Asian company, and they might consider that. They might, they would run into trouble because they wouldn't know how to handle typically some of these inquiries. Because again, there's cultural differences, there's negotiating patterns which are different, there's decision making which is done differently in different markets. And you have to connect the dots. You have to show value to a foreign advertiser from a market which you've never been to. And that's not easy for a lot of sporting entities who are not equipped, by design, they're not equipped to deal with it. Marketers and media buyers in the region increasingly have started seeing value, and we've spoken to a few marketing professionals and media buyers in the region, and all of them have said the same thing, that they see the value, and they've realized that the clients have started seeing the value in sports marketing and sponsorships. A lot of them do it locally on a smaller scale, but they have clients who could benefit from strategies for sports marketing or sports sponsorships or branding or image rights for athletes in different markets. They've started seeing the importance, and they realize the impact that it could have on specific audience segments, and the long-term benefits, which can be had by tying up with the right sports entity or the right athlete at the right time. There's a lot of opportunities, not just with football and cricket, but there's a lot of other sports. There's a lot of, if there's a client, let's assume, wanting to reach high net worth individuals from the south of France, there's the Monaco Boat Show. There's a lot of different options. It doesn't have to be a one size fits all. But if TMV starts working in this space, they can create different strategies for different kinds of clients. This is where TMV can fit in. I think we should form a specialized sports marketing department. They should hire experienced people from the industry who know about sports marketing, who've worked in that space, whether as a commercial manager for a cricket club or a football club, or if they worked for find relevant people with experience, have them, work on a very clear strategy to reach out to sporting entities, identify that the ones that could be relevant to advertisers in the Middle East, sign representation agreements, just how TMV does with other media forms, and sign those opportunities and market itself within the region, within the Middle East, as a one-stop shop for sports advertising. A lot of these agencies, again, just like back in the day, they were clueless about advertising options in other markets. Right now, they're clueless about advertising options in sport. So if TMV can claim that space in a thought leadership sort of manner, if TMV can start publishing insights and reports, and hold workshops, events, invite a couple of commercial people from different clubs to speak, to agencies and media buyers in this region and tell them what works, what doesn't work. We're going to give them some case studies. Claim that space. Nobody's claiming it at the moment. This is the right time for TMV to step into that, be the first mover in this space, in this market, and claim that space. Hold events, workshops, as I said, to educate advertisers and marketers on the options and potential within sports marketing. I think that can go a long way. And the deal size, again, just how we spoke about the deal size in print being huge. The deal size in sports marketing is fairly large. You're talking about image rights, you're talking about shirt sponsorships, lead sponsorships, you're talking about stadium branding. These are big ticket projects, and I think this could go a long way in reclaiming some of that lost revenue over the last few years. I think this could be a good strategy for the future as well, because, and we're going to look at that, it's included in the report. There's a lot of adaptation and evolution that goes on within the sporting industry, whether it comes to social media, content partnerships, gaming, and you know, all of that provides like a huge opportunity to the Media Vantage to secure its future and diversify and step into the space. Thank you.